and she's going to wake up in the next minute. And you just want to ask her a question. I mean, it's just a feeling that she's really going to come back and answer your question.
Asia, the world's largest and most diverse continent, has long captured the imaginations of adventurers and scholars alike. But what lies beneath its timeless landscapes and bustling cities is a treasure trove of archaeological wonders waiting to be unveiled. From the exciting culture of mummification of the fire mummies to the captivating ruins of Göbekli Tepe in the West, Asia is key to unlocking the secrets of our shared human heritage. We are concerned about our history and how it has shaped today's world. Number 15. Homo Floresiensis, the island of Flores, Asia. The extinct Homo Floresiensis remains, also called hobbits, were found on Flores Island, Indonesia. These fossils date back to around 100,000 to 60,000 years ago, and they also left behind stone tools dating from about 190,000 to 50,000 years ago. These hobbit individuals were about 3 feet 6 inches tall, weighed 30 kilograms, had tiny brains, big teeth for their size, hunched shoulders, no chins, receding foreheads, and relatively large feet compared to their short legs. Despite their small size, they made and used stone tools, hunted tiny elephants and big rodents, dealt with predators like giant Komodo dragons, and possibly used fire. Their small stature and brain size might have come from island dwarfism, which happens when creatures are isolated on a small island with limited food and no big predators for a long time. Pygmy elephants on Flores, which are now extinct, showed similar adaptations. Interestingly, the smallest Homo species and stegodon elephants are from Flores, Indonesia. However, some scientists now think that H. floresiensis's ancestors might have been small when they first arrived on Flores. Number 14. Fire mummies, Kabayan Cave, Philippines. The mummification of dead bodies is a common practice of the olden days. In Egypt, the organs were removed, and the dead body was filled with salt for preservation and then wrapped with white linen. But it's a different case in the Philippines. In the Philippines, the dead are smoked for presentation, hence this name fire mummies. The fire mummies were found in the caves of Kabayan in the Benguet service of the Philippines. They're also known as Ibaloy mummies and Benguet mummies. The fire mummies are remains of humans dehydrated and smoked when they died. Shortly before death, the individual is made to drink a large amount of salt since it causes dehydration, so the drying process begins. Then, when the individual eventually dies, the smoking process starts. Smoking doesn't involve any fire or flame, so the body can usually be suspended for several weeks to months. This smoking mummification was only for tribal leaders. In the early 1900s, one fire mummy called Apo Abu was stolen from the cave. He was dressed in clothing that a tribal chief would have worn and was in a crouching position. He had tattoos all over. He was known to be a great hunter and a half-human, half-deity. After a while, Apo Anu was returned because it was believed that his absence could cause earthquakes and other natural disasters. Although Apo Anu was born, other fire mummies were still stolen and never returned. Number 13. The Hanging Pillar, Lapakshi, Andhra Pradesh. Everything that goes up must surely come down. That's the law of gravity. But that is not always true because this pillar defies the law. The Lapakshi temple was built around the 16th century and dedicated to Lord Virabhadra. Apart from the colorful frescoes, intricate carvings, and a huge 70-foot bull statue, the hanging pillar is another exciting feature within the temple. People have given different opinions concerning the hanging post. Some said it was deliberate to boast about the excellent craftsmanship of the artisans of that era. Others said it was a result of seismic activity or faulty construction. Today, the hanging pillar is still a mystery to people, and tourists worldwide are drawn to it. Number 12. Bizarre human-like skulls, Gyeongju, Korea. Archaeologists were evacuating in Korea, and they stumbled upon this skull in a grave that belonged to the ancient Silla culture. Now here's the cool part. Experts are saying that this skull wasn't deliberately elongated through cranial deformation. This unique discovery happened in the grave of a woman near Gyeongju, which used to be the historical capital of the Silla Kingdom. You know, the Silla Kingdom that ruled most of the Korean peninsula for almost 1,000 years, from 57 BC to AD 935. Talk about unearthing some ancient mysteries. The lady was in her late 30s, and her remains were tucked away inside a traditional wooden coffin known as a mokwakmyo. Now, her skeleton was holding up pretty well, but her skull? Well, that was a bit of a puzzle. The researchers had to play a bit of a head, fixing game and carefully piece it back together. But here's where it gets interesting. When they finally got it all back in one piece, they were in for a surprise. Turns out, her skull was anything but ordinary. It was unusually long, with the width being less than 75% of its length. Number 11. The Demon on a Clay Tablet, Iraq, Asia. This 2,700 clay tablet was discovered in a cave in Iraq, but has been lying in the museum in Berlin for the past 4 years. The demon is shaped like a monster with hoofed feet, a tail, and a tongue sticking out of his mouth. The devil's name is Bennu, and he is known to have been the cause of epilepsy. The Assyrians believed that demons and gods were responsible for any disease, and the only solution to the condition was offering rituals to them. Researchers said Bennu's epilepsy is the first known case of epilepsy with signs and symptoms. The symptoms of the disease included seizures, loss of consciousness or sanity, and in some cases, the patients cried out like a goat, according to the research published in Journal de Médecine Cuneiforme. So, Troels Pank Arbol, the head honcho of this research crew from the University of Copenhagen, dropped some knowledge on us. He said, "You know, we've been aware for quite some time that the ancient Assyrians and Babylonians had this unique way of looking at diseases. To them, it was all about gods, demons, and even witchcraft being the culprits behind illnesses. And here's the funny part," he continued, "they believed it was the healer's job to kick these supernatural troublemakers out and treat the symptoms using all sorts of methods, drugs, rituals, and even incantations." Number 10. Mysterious carvings and evidence of human sacrifice. Shimao, China. The secrets of the stones were tricky to unveil. For years, locals in China's lowest plateau, amidst dusty hills, thought the deteriorating rock walls near their homes were part of the Great Wall. It seemed logical. The ancient wall's remains weave through this dry area within the Yellow River's northern loop, indicating the boundary of Chinese rule for over 2,000 years. But a peculiar detail stood out. Locals, followed by thieves, started discovering jade pieces in the debris, some shaped into discs, blades, and wands. Jade isn't native to this northernmost part of Shanxi province. The closest source is nearly 1,000 miles away, and wasn't a known element of the Great Wall. Why was it found in large quantities in this barren area near the Ordos Desert? A group of Chinese archaeologists arrived to solve the mystery years ago. They started to discover something both marvelous and baffling. The stones weren't part of the Great Wall, but the remnants of a splendid fortress city. The continuous excavation has unveiled over 6 miles of defensive walls encircling a 230-foot-tall pyramid and an inner sanctuary with colorful murals, jade relics, and chilling signs of human sacrifice. The archaeologists uncovered 70 different stunning relief sculptures in stones. Shimao dated 4,200 years back and flourished between 2,300 BC to 1,800 BC. Then it was forgotten. Below the walls of Shimao were 80 human skulls present with no skeleton attached. The pits closest to the east gate contained 24 skulls, which shows a ritual beheading due to the number and placement. Almost all the victims of these rituals were young girls. Number 9. The Terracotta Army, Shanxi Province, China. In 1974, peasants in northwest China's drought-stricken Shanxi Province stumbled upon clay figure fragments while digging a well, marking the start of one of modern times' most significant archaeological findings. An entire life-size terracotta army of soldiers and horses, buried for over 2,000 years, lay beneath the unexcavated tomb of Qin Shi Huangdi, who declared himself the first emperor of China in 221 BC. This astounding underground treasure was discovered near his grave. For the past 35 years, around 600 pits have been found by archaeologists across a 22-square-mile area, forming a largely unexcavated underground vault complex. 3 primary holes are conveniently reachable and housed within the 4-acre Terracotta Army Museum, built around the discovery site and opened in 1979. One pit showcases long rows of warriors, pieced together from fragments, standing in formation, each exhibiting unique features like top knots, caps, tunics, armored vests, goatees, or trimmed beards. Another pit in the museum displays the soldiers as they were discovered. Some upright, buried up to their shoulders, while others are toppled over, next to fallen and cracked clay horses. This site is one of China's top attractions, alongside the Great Wall and Beijing's Forbidden City. Number 8. Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead, Indus River, Kana, Pakistan. Mohenjo-Daro was built around 2500 BC in a relatively short period. The water system was part of the first construction with over 700 wells. The city is divided into the lower town and the higher citadel. Over time, the Indus civilization declined, and in the 19th century, Mohenjo-Daro became abandoned. The archaeological importance of the site was observed in 1922. During evacuations, it was noticed that the mold contained the remains of the largest city of the Indus civilization. It's called the Mold of the Dead because thousands of dead bodies were seen during the excavation. This ancient city had quite the layout. It was designed on a grid plan and covered a massive 741 acres. Now, the city itself was divided into two parts, the lower city and the high citadel. Speaking of the citadel, it was basically a big old mound made of mud bricks reaching a height of 12 feet. On top of that mound, you'd find some interesting stuff like public baths, a swanky residential structure, and even two big assembly halls. Right at the heart of the city, there was this bustling central market, surrounded by houses where people lived. Some of those houses were pretty fancy multi-story dwellings with courtyards. Number 7. The Golden Bowl, Tepe Hadanlu. The year is 1958. In a moment of astonishing discovery, archaeologists unearthed an Iron Age city layer that had remained frozen in time. This layer, a burn layer, reveals an eerie tableau, tens of bodies perfectly preserved in ash and rubble. The site, known as Tepe Hasanlu, is a remarkable site. A massive central mound, towering 25 meters high, boasts imposing fortifications. It's believed to have been a citadel surrounded by paved streets. Beyond its walls lies an outer town with houses, stables, and temples. But it's not just the city that captivates the archaeologists. Among the relics uncovered are treasures of astonishing beauty and significance. An intricately engraved stone cylinder adorned with images of gods and rituals gleams with gold caps. A figurine meticulously crafted from laminated ivory captures the imagination. And a sword hilt, its bronze guard gleaming, hints at tales of ancient battles. These artifacts are part of the legendary Gold Bowl of Hasanlu, named after the man who discovered it almost 3,000 years later. Nearby, a skeletal hand, frozen in time, reveals the desperate flight of an individual from the 9th century BC. Leading this groundbreaking excavation is none other than the celebrated anthropologist and archaeologist Robert H. Dyson, Jr. His work shines a brilliant light on Iran's archaeological landscape in the mid-20th century. As the dust settles, it becomes abundantly clear that the Gold Bowl of Hasanlu is no ordinary find. It stands as a testament to the unparalleled skill of ancient goldsmiths. Its intricate designs, a mosaic of ornamental motifs, are crucial to unlocking the religious and mythological traditions of its time. A unique and significant artifact speaking across millennia echoes an ancient civilization's mysteries. Number 6. Mountain of Human Bones and Animal Carcasses, Rupkund Lake, India. Let's dive into the intriguing tale of Rupkund Lake, nestled high in the Indian Himalayas. Picture this. It's a staggering 16,500 feet above sea level, making it quite a remote spot. This lake is frozen solid for most of the year, just another frosty pond in a snowy valley. But when the weather warms up, get ready for a spine-tingling show. You see, on those warmer days, something genuinely eerie happens. Hundreds of human skeletons start to emerge from the depths of Rupkund Lake, and some of them even have bits of flesh still clinging to their bones. That's why it's earned the nickname Skeleton Lake. It's like nature's own horror story. Imagine stumbling upon that scene. So what's the deal with all these skeletons? That's the big question, and it's a mystery that's left experts scratching their heads for a long time. So there you have it, Rupkund Lake, where nature puts on a performance. Anthropologists have had their eyes on Rupkund Lake for quite a few decades now. But here's the kicker. While they knew about the lake, they had a puzzle regarding those skeletons. It's like a real-life mystery. Over the years, rock slides, ice moving around, and even us humans visiting the place have stirred things up. It's made figuring out the story behind those skeletons is challenging. When were they buried? How did they end up there? And the big one, who were these people? It's a classic case of a puzzle that keeps getting more complex, leaving anthropologists with more questions than answers. Number 5. Ancient Living Forest, Lehigh County, China. A group of cave explorers stumbled upon the sinkhole outside Pinghe Village in Lehigh County, South China's Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. The explorers wasted no time and ventured into the pit on May 6th. What they discovered was truly fascinating. Ancient trees and various other plant life flourishing in the depths of the sinkhole. You won't even believe the sinkhole is a whopping 630 feet deep. To put it in perspective, it could easily swallow up the Washington Monument and still have room to spare. Now here's the real deal. This ancient forest stretches for nearly 3 football fields at the bottom of this colossal pit. Picture trees shooting up over 100 feet into the sky. It's like stepping into a prehistoric jungle down there. And guess what? The Chinese government says about 30 of these massive sinkholes are in the same country. Can you even imagine? It's like nature's been playing a game of let's dig bottomless holes and see what we find. It's indeed a discovery. Number 4. Baby bones from Ashkelon. Isn't it just mind-boggling? We're talking about nearly 100 infant bones found in a late Roman early Byzantine sewer below a bathhouse in Ashkelon, down on the southern coast of Israel. And let me tell you, scholars are still scratching their heads over this one. So, in 1988, Patricia Smith and Gila Kahila from the Hebrew University took a closer look at these remains. They found it pretty eerie. Most of the bones were still in one piece, and every part of those tiny skeletons was there. These infants seemed to be tossed into that drain right after they passed away. Even more mysterious is that all the bones and those unerupted teeth were like those of brand new newborns. There are no signs of disease or malformation, which is pretty unusual. It strongly suggests infanticide, not some catastrophe like an epidemic or war where you'd expect a mix of ages. Now, here's the chilling part. Smith and Kahila figured that these infants were probably girls. Why? Well, in Roman society, female infanticide was tragically familiar. There's even a letter from 1 BC where a husband tells his wife, if it's a boy, keep it. If it's a girl, get rid of it. And the Roman poet Juvenal talks about kids being abandoned beside cesspools. It's like stepping into a dark chapter of history. Number 3. Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, Asia. In modern-day Turkey, Göbekli Tepe is an archaeological marvel of paramount significance. The revelation of this astonishing site, dating back 10,000 years during the 1990s CE, reverberated through archaeology and beyond. It even prompted some scholars to propose it as a possible location for the biblical Garden of Eden. Göbekli Tepe boasts an array of sculptures and megalithic architecture, constituting what may be the world's earliest temple. Remarkably, this site predates fundamental elements of civilization, such as pottery, metallurgy, written language, the wheel, and the advent of agriculture. The most astounding aspect is that hunter-gatherer societies constructed this complex site in the 10th or 11th millennium BC. This challenges our conventional understanding of the capacities and achievements of such institutions and presents a formidable problem to established views on the emergence of civilization. Number 2. Water demon bones, Japan. In the wild world of Japanese folklore, there's this creature known as the kappa, or the river child. These little guys are quite the characters. They're usually shown as small, humanoid creatures, but here's where it gets interesting. They've got scaly, reptilian skin, hands, and feet that are all webbed up. These kappa hang out in ponds and rivers, and they're known for a range of antics. Sometimes it's just playful pranks, but other times it gets pretty sinister. I'm talking about attacking women and even dragging unsuspecting folks into the water to, well, let's say not to teach them how to swim. A fantastic fun fact is that kappa maki is the name for those cucumber-filled sushi rolls, and you know why? It's because kappa is said to have a real soft spot for cucumbers. You might think it's all just tales to keep kids away from water dangers. Some even suggest it's a myth inspired by giant salamanders. But guess what? There are still die-hard believers out there. In some old villages, you'll find signs beside bodies of water warning folks about Kappa. But here's where it gets juicy. No one's ever been able to prove these Kappa exist. Until now? Yep, this mummified Kappa remains exhibited in Miyazaki Prefecture in Kyushu. They say it was shot on a riverbank in 1818. The foot and arm on display measure about 8 centimeters and 15 centimeters, number 1. Tera mummies, Tarim Basin, Asia. It's truly fascinating to think about. Thousands of years ago, in the vast expanse of East Asia's Tarim Basin, there was this remarkable discovery. Hundreds of bodies preserved so immaculately that they almost seem like they could wake up any minute. They're sporting hairstyles, clothing, and accessories belonging to a culture long gone. And what's more, this culture once hinted that these folks might have been Indo-European migrants who settled in China long ago. But wait, here's where it gets even more intriguing. When modern DNA research stepped in, it turned the whole story on its head. These preserved bodies were indigenous to the Tarim Basin. They had their own genetic identity, different from the neighboring populations. Talk about a plot twist. So fast forward to today, and researchers are still puzzling over these Tarim Basin mummies. They're curious about their customs, everyday lives, and how they fit into the grand tapestry of human history. It's like a mystery that keeps getting deeper with every answer we find. And that's a wrap. If you found this video intriguing, let us know in the comments section.